meeting is getting recorded. All right. Now, let's begin. Oh, too soon. All right. Welcome, everybody. Thank you all for joining. By the way, I have the screen there in front of me where I've projected my presentation. So I'd be looking at you guys over there, possibly at times. So not shying away from you all. But welcome and thank you again for joining. Before we begin, some common rules I think we can all agree for this session today. Please keep yourself on mute during the session. If you want to say something, unmute yourself. If you want to ask a question, use the raise hand feature that's there on Google Meet to say something. But most importantly, please ask questions. It's okay to not know something and clarify it. I mean, you can be a fool for 5 minutes, or you could be a fool for 5 years. So it's okay. Ask questions. Perfectly fine to ask stupid questions, unreasonable questions. Let's make it interactive. Let's have a discussion. And yeah, there's a Q&A feature in the Google Meet interface. You could use that to drop your questions. I can address those via that Q&A section as well. All right, let's begin. Quickly, there's been a lot that I've done, but let me summarize the top things you could know about Pranay. By the way, LinkedIn and that email are two ways. LinkedIn and email are two ways you could connect with me. That's my only social presence. And quickly about my journey, I did architecture for a year. Realized now that this is not the institute where I want to study. I went to NIF to study accessory design, but I realized I'm more of a visual guy. And all right, sorry, I was just saying that yeah, I've been more of a visual guy, and I did that until I was at Accenture as a graphic designer, where I like there's more I need to do to be at those strategic locations where you make decisions on how something will get executed, which is why I did my master's in design strategy from Polytechnico, and that was quite an epiphany where I actually uncovered a process which allows me to solve problems, irrespective of the domain I'm talking about. And therefore, that is how my first post-master's, my first job was at Sierra, where I joined as a UX designer. And within, I think, a year and a half, I was leading the entire engineering team because it was all about solving the right problems, and I spent time with the engineering team to understand how do they work, what are the tools they use and services they use to solve the problems. And I'll share an analogy later, which I think will help you also understand, like, okay, what is that engineers are doing when they're building something, right? Pretty easy to understand, by the way. But yeah, that has been my journey. And right now I'm a program manager for a company called Shield AI, where we build autonomy. We provide a platform that helps you build autonomy for unmanned aerial systems. And so I am the program manager at Shield AI right now. And this has been my journey. The top things to know about me would be that I'm what I bring as an expertise is a process that makes me a versatile problem solver with my experience, ranging between design, tech, and business. If I have to say three words that define me, I would say curiosity, storyteller, and problem solver. So that's a bit about me. Sorry, spend too much time here. Let's go ahead. Now, before I talk about second order thinking today, which is our session, I want you all to keep two concepts in mind. Let me talk about the first one. So if I can ask, like, what is this? What do you see? You can unmute and say, what do you see? Or like you could type in the chat. All right. I would say for everybody, it's a forest, right? This is another view of looking at a forest from the ground. This is you looking up, still a forest, just a very different perspective. And this is me looking down at the forest, but still it's a forest, right? The point I want to highlight here is that the same thing could be looked at from different perspectives, and it still is the same thing. And think about it, different people, like let's say a biologist would look at the forest in a very different way than a climatologist. And a climatologist would look at it in a very different way than let's say, a trekker who's going through the forest, and a botanist, a zoologist. They all would look at the same entity in very different ways, right? And that is the beauty of working in a team where different people are working towards the same problem and they're working with different perspectives. So it really helps if if you can broaden your perspective by looking at through someone else's lenses as well. It helps you do your job better because now you have a larger context of what this thing looks like. It's like looking at a chair from just one side from where you are. If you just go around, you would see, okay, there's the other part of the chair, and now you have a better understanding of what the chair looks like, right? So this is the first concept I want you to keep in mind, that broaden your perspective, look at the same things through different lenses, through other people's lenses who are also working on solving the same problem in your team, right? This is like quickly a short story, not story. It's actually something that took place. I don't know how many of you have heard about this uh, event where in Yellowstone National Park in the US, they introduced wolves, a pack of wolves, about 100 wolves in 1995. The reason was that because there were no apex predators there, the number of the population of deers rose a lot. And because they kept grazing, so they depleted the entire, like large swaths of land with no grass, no vegetation. Just like the whole land became barren, pretty barren to a point. And therefore, 95, they introduced a pack of wolves to control the deer population. But the cool thing is, it the objective was to control the population of the deers, but it had a lot of larger spread consequences on different ecosystems within the Yellowstone National Park. So, for example, when wolves starting hunting deers, so deers would stop going in a particular area because of fear of being attacked in those areas. Also, they stopped grazing a lot that they were earlier, and so you would see that vegetation started growing up. Trees started their general height. It said quadrupled within 5 years or 10 years. I'm forgetting the exact time. You can watch the story on YouTube. This documentary was done by National Geographic, and when trees grew, birds started coming in, other animals started coming in, and ecosystems started building up. The rivers started gaining shape, a firm shape, because now the banks had vegetation on them which wasn't getting eaten away, and so there was no soil erosion, and therefore the shape of the river started becoming more firm. And so, literally, by introducing wolves in the park, it changed the shape of the rivers. That's the consequence of introducing just like an entity, an apex predator in that ecosystem. The point I'm trying to put across is that the real world exists in unity. Whatever work you're doing, as a designer, as an engineer, whoever, your work is going to impact others and other systems. So being cognizant of that fact allows you to think how should, what should you do and how will it impact other systems? And that is a key point. These are two key concepts to remember: broadening your perspective and knowing that your work impacts everything else, or understanding who all does it impact, right? I'll take a pause before now jump into the topic. Does anybody have any questions that I could respond to? You can unmute yourself, raise hands if you have any questions so far. Don't shy away. Like I said, all right. I see no questions. Going ahead then. So let's talk about second order thinking. And I want to talk about what it is through examples. feel free again to add a point, ask a question, or anything. So this is a like button. We're all very aware with this. The purpose with which it was built was, that when Facebook started, it was a social platform of sharing your personal life with the people you know who are not physically connected with you. So it facilitates that. And the like button was a very convenient way of saying I like it instead of typing it out on a comment on every picture, right? But think about now what it has turned into, right? The number of likes has turned into a social validation loop. If I get 100 likes on a picture versus 1,000 likes, you're judging how somebody liked that, how much approval did you get, right? Self-worth is getting tied to metrics. Oh, you got 10,000 likes, or you got 100 million 1 million likes. Those sort of concepts have come up as a consequence of the like button. It has also led to mental health impacts, like people getting depressed. Their personalities being built around the concept of like social approval that comes with the like and the heart buttons on Instagram, right? It has given birth to content economy monetization, right? Facebook ads, marketplace, and whatnot, like as a result of like button or like viewership. And think about it, uh, the purpose, the way Facebook works is that their way of earning revenue is not you. You are a free user of Facebook. Therefore, how do they make money? They make money by getting Facebook ads. Why would somebody post a Facebook ad? Because Facebook will say, hey, look, I got so much attention on my platform, so many people watching the post that I'm putting there, and I will slip in your ad in between. This is a great place to market. I got so many eyeballs. But how do you make sure that there are more eyeballs? By making sure people are more attracted and spend more time. Hateful and violent or aggravating posts generally get a lot more attention, and this is what the algorithms learn, and a consequence of that was the Rohingya genocide that happened in Myanmar, which was fueled by hateful content that was spreading virally across Facebook, and that algorithmic optimization to spread that kind of information led to a genocide, numbers of people being killed for misinterpreted information. So a simple micro interaction became a psychological behavior. If this is like magnitudes and orders of consequences, but yeah, this is one example to explain like what was the first order consequence, that hey, a simple way to say I like it has turned into something more. Retweet. Um the idea was to quickly and easily share interesting content with your network or whoever, but it has become uh, it has become a source for viral misinformation, which spreads faster than truth. You could have bots, and like you could have bad actors weaponizing this feature, retweeting, to just spread mal content so fast, and like something we usually would not happen if human communication were to happen naturally and face to face in person, right? So that's retweet for you, how it evolved through time. um, there's so much outrage culture and moral amplification that enables the retweet button, and this is the distinction between the first order consequence, why you built it, then oh, simply just retweet and share a tweet with several others, expand the reach of a tweet, right? That is the second order consequence that it uh, led to. Infinite scroll. I think so many of us are victims to infinite scroll. uh, the idea was very simple, right? That you could, instead of the page loading every time you've reached the end, I just keep pushing in information smoothly, not letting you finish, like not letting you reach the end of the page. So therefore, you could keep scrolling and gives you smooth, frictionless browsing experience. But we know what it has become into. The doomsday scrolling behavior emerged from that. Loss of time perception. You keep. I went through it several times, like scrolling and scrolling for half an hour, and like, oh my god, I spent half an hour just doing this, and I had to work or do something, but I wasted that time. Uh, it has led to debates on addiction, which I would agree. Like, I am pretty addicted to screens, and doomsday scrolling just enables that. There have been debates happening, discussions on mental health degradation because of just being constantly focused. It has reduced the attention span that people have, from being able to read books to an hour long video to now just filtering through 15-second videos quickly, so just to get that dopamine rush that just keeps you going on and on. And of course it affects productivity, therefore, uh, for people, whoever is involved in finance scroll. So these are just some examples I wanted to share for to distinguish between what is first order thinking and second order thinking. By the way, I don't know how many of you know the show Black Mirror. It's there on Netflix. It's an amazing show. Makes me depressed every time I watch. So I just watch one episode per per setting. Basically, the framework or the layout of the show is that they show a technology, and they start with first and second order happy effects of that technology, of what it serves, what it does, and how it enables, makes the life better. And then usually it ends with second order negative effects of that particular technology, of how it could result in consequences that people did not assume, and they just dramatize it to a uh, very high level. But it's a show I would recommend everybody to watch, because it shows how you must think beyond what you're the very objective thing you're doing, like the first order consequence that you're working for, the first order objective that you're working for. You must go beyond that to think, like, what could it result into. And at this point, I'll take a pause before we jump into more about second order thinking and why it matters and the framework. I'll take a pause. Do we have any questions so far?
So, Pranay, I have this question. So, the second order thing only talk about the negative impact, or it talk about the positive and impact as well?
All of it, yes.
Yeah, okay.
There'll be positive impacts, but there'll also be negative impacts.
Okay. So it kind of cover the both, right? So the because the examples are kind of a bit I
Right.
understand it's a positive. It's the examples are in a negative way. I thought it is only covering that part, but I understand.
Oh, even I assumed it's like negative
Yeah.
because it's okay. Yeah.
Uh, Let me, good question. So let me clarify that. The reason why I mentioned about negative consequences, because see, good consequences is something that just makes something better, right? You were it Second order good consequences, something just helps you elevate that product or that feature or the capability of building. Often when we don't think about the negative consequences, you can have a reinforcing feedback loop which aggravates the situation so much that it creates a new kind of problem that you had not envisioned. Dealing with negative consequences that grow large would be much more challenging than working with happy consequences that just make something better, right? Something that does better is not creating problem, and therefore you can take your time to make it more smooth, refined, and so on, right? But a problem growing bigger has now resulted into something new that you would have to design for, probably within a shorter time span, and you need to react faster, right? So dealing with problems would be much harder, is why I focus on the negative consequences. But yes, I'll share a few examples of where uh, positive outcomes were generated, positive behavioral changes or consequences came up because of something being designed, and second order consequences that came up. So
Gee, sorry, I was asking like, what if they intentionally keep the negative thing in mind and do it? Like, for example, like the Instagram or like YouTube scrolling, like they know the scroll is endless, so people will like keep scrolling, and that's their intention, right? Like they want people to scroll for a long time, like
Even
waste
I
their
have the
time.
same question.
Yeah.
right. So here's the thing. Again, like we are talking about second order consequences for designers
Mhm.
today, but that does
Okay.
not mean that we are working in isolation, right? There's
Uh-huh.
an organization whose end goal is to make profit, be profitable, make money. They've realized that this model works better. You need to have more eyeballs on the platform. How do you get that? Create content that appeals to people and makes them stay on the platform. Therefore, we'll get more revenue by ads, and more revenue means more profit, and therefore, this is a good way to do it.
Mhm. Oh.
Apparently, designing this feature has hooked people onto the platform, which is what they would have planned for. But the consequences that it has generated, people being addicted, to the point where their self-worth is associated to the number of likes or hearts on Instagram, is something they would not have planned for. But it's a choice that they're making between revenue versus, people saying that the people are getting addicted. It hasn't come to a threshold, probably a critical point where it has become a mass problem that no, Instagram, the hard thing has to go. The social rating thing will not work, should not happen. It hasn't probably reached that point where the con of something has outweighed the profit that it's
Mhm.
generating for the company.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. They probably wanted people to like stay for longer to earn ads, but they probably didn't think about the consequences that, it might waste time or get people addicted. Yeah. Thank
It's
you.
a platform, yeah. WhatsApp, not WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, LinkedIn. Even
Mm-hmm.
LinkedIn now is like filled with content of people trying to just get views, and those views have turned into metrics for economies developing out of it. Hey, I get a million views on my post. Pay me this much so that I will share your content, and your content will get so much views. Right? That's the economy that has come up as part
Mm-hmm.
of views monetization. So. Uh, yes, there'll be people who will say, "Oh, like people are spending too much time on LinkedIn, wasting their time essentially, which could have been productive otherwise." But uh, the profit of it is, it just outweighs the cons right now.
Gee, thank
And
you.
this picture that's there on the screen, this is
Mhm.
season 3, episode 1, Nosedive. Do watch it if you haven't, because this is
Oh.
I specifically chose this image because this mission, sorry, this episode specifically shows how a rating system evolves in a society where everything is rating based. You meet people and you rate them. That's what the layout, the plot of this.
Oh, I think I've seen a clip of this. Like it affects their lifestyle and right?
Yes,
If they get yeah, yeah. So they have to fake being nice so they can get like more ratings. But I haven't watched the whole thing. I think I'll watch today. Thank you.
do. This is a very cool. It really made me depressed. It really depressed me. This episode, but yeah. All of Black Mirror does that. One season, one episode at a time. That's what I do. So, if you have any other questions, let me answer that. Otherwise, let's go ahead. Pooja, you've written working with different people, bringing in varied perspectives. Do you want to recap on like what that means, or like?
That is like Aditi asked for a recap over the first before the like thing. She asked for a recap. So Pooja, I think she written that thing that you described actually.
Okay, Neha, you raised your
If
hand.
Aditya, Aditi, if you want any recap, you can just let me know. Let us know now.
Okay.
Neha, if you want to say something, yeah.
Hi, Pranay. Yeah, so in this time when we have so many people doing research, where we include, I think, people who study psychology, so
Mm.
isn't it like quite evident that people are actually working where you already know it has to be doom. Like I try to always relate things. Like I mean, I'm not very religious person, but I try to put it in those seven sins, you know. So there is this greed, pride, lust, and what else? You eat a lot. So yeah,
Gluttony.
yeah, thank you. So I feel like everything. I mean, currently that's where I am. So even when people know they have the team where they understand where the app or where this particular new invention will go left, right, center. I think, isn't it evident? Um, did you get what I'm saying?
So you're saying my company actually makes a product which wants, like, let's say, doomsday scrolling to be part as a feature of it, and we know where it will lead to, but we're doing it anyways, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, for money.
For money. So see, again, this becomes a question of business. It becomes a business question. If you're a business trying to earn more revenue, that's your first goal, and yes, that is what the company will do. Uh, what I would say is, the higher you go up in an organization, the more authority you gain. You get that power to make a change. Let's say, you could build a feature saying that this is the maximum amount of time you are spending on the app. Nobody would do it. Nobody does it actually, but at least you will have a choice. There are apps, or there are companies that make conscious decisions on how they want people to interact, like this whole wheats whole foods or whole truth, like this company that does makes products, right? Raw ingredients and natural raw ingredients, and like clean, unadulterated ingredients. They have chosen, it would have been expensive for them to make products like that, but they made a choice that we are not going to provide crap food any longer to people, and that's a choice they've made. It would have a economic cost to the business, but they've chosen to do it anyways. Similarly, if you in your organization are at a place where you can make such decisions, where there will be an economic cost to a decision, a policy decision that you're making, that we will not build something that can go infinite, or it'll have a limit up to how much information is being shared. And even training your algorithms, for that matter, the algorithms are trained in a way that you want more attention. Therefore, like I said, hateful, aggravating, violent content generally gets more eyeballs, but you can tweak your algorithm, say just present content, right? Present positive news as well as negative, or whatever is there. Present everything, and people can choose what to look for. Do not put people in boxes of what they believe, right? Ideological boxes, and do not create polarization. So that is again, that comes down to an engineering decision as well, right? How are you making the algorithm? And that's a point I will capture again in the slides forward as well, that responsibility uh, comes with the decisions you're making. So to answer your question, at perhaps a junior level or a mid level, you may not have the authority to make such decisions, but as you go higher up in the chain, those that authority, that ability to make decisions will come. At least you will be able to voice and challenge ideas, and then again, it's a matter of, like, you outweigh your profits versus ideals, ethics, and so on. We are moving in a way which reflects what you said, but I mean, here we are talking about second order consequences, so that at least we're aware of what it could, right? And we could take personal decisions versus company wide decisions to change to something better.
If I can just add to it, I feel all these companies like who are like manipulating or using such psychological effect, I think they know about it, and that comes under the dark pattern UX. While when we are talking about second order thinking, I think mostly we are talking about effects that we did not think of initially. So it could be positive or negative. And why I think the negative would get highlighted. So it could be like we can paint the whole wall white, But if there is a black dot on it, everyone would like look at that black dot. Nobody would like just check that okay, everything else is perfect. So I think that is when we notice the negative more than the positive.
Right. All right. I'll go ahead. So now I'm going to talk about why second order thinking matters, right? Why should you worry about it? First point is that now with technology, social media, internet, so widely spread, down to the villages, down to every individual who has a phone and has internet connectivity, who's connected to the world. Now the world is so connected that whatever you do can reach millions and billions of people at the same time. Unlike when you would, 25, 30 years ago, you would design a product and it would reach a segment who can purchase your product and so on. Now your ideas will reach way faster. And therefore, the scale at which you're operating is magnanimous. I mean, it depends. So everybody is working somewhere or doing something, you would understand like what is the reach of the product that you're working on and how far does it reach. And therefore, you think about how what you're the feature that you're designing, who all will it interact with? Will it expand on to other people who have yet not subscribed to your product? Will it change behaviors? Will it change the way people talk about it? uh, that is something you could think of every time you're building something, like every feature that you're designing. What will be the scale at the scale on which you're working in your company? What would it mean? How could it translate through time? um, this is something I want to mention. Think not of your design as just happening in a slice of time. Like this is a feature, like I can simply show a like button and say that, or I can rate something and provide a rating for the product. Think in multiple slices of time or flow of time through which your design will go, not just a slice of time in which you're designing. And therefore, you will then see how your what kind of feedback people give to your product, to you, when they interact with the feature or whatever you've designed. And I have some case studies and examples forward ahead to give you an idea like what it means to design through time, right? So scale is important. Again, with the scale comes the impact that, for example, think about it, shareable taxis, right? Uber like services. I remember there was a point where you would ship something like from A to B. You would just put a laptop or a bag or something in a cab and say, hey, I'm sending this I'm sending this taxi to your place, pick up the stuff from that Uber driver or whoever. And that gave rise to service like Dunzo and Porter, who started like whose prime purpose was like to deliver stuff from A to B, because they realized there was a market that was available who used these ride sharing services for that purpose. Um, so this is where impact of a particular service or a product expands into other services coming out of it. The impact, it generates new behaviors in the market. Think of Amazon's one-click delivery, which by the way they've patented, and it's something makes the life so easy, and that created a new way of ordering something instead of putting all that information again and again and taking you through 10 seconds to 15 or whatever, but even reducing all of that, just one click delivery. Amazing UX there, basically. And this is perhaps something that had second order positive consequences on how people were using it, right? Think about adding tags to products. Nowadays, every time when you're adding a product, you label it and you add tags to it, a lot of it. Previously, if you're uploading your products on a website or a store, you would just add a product, some description, title, and image, right? That's it. But now you want to add a lot of tags, because the way the search is happening on the web and how your product will go up in the ratings or the ranking on showing up on the search results depends on the number of tags and labels that you've added to your products. It also allows a lot of segmentation to happen. Like on Twitter or Instagram, when you're searching for content, the kind of hashtags you've put or the labels you've put just allows that search to happen in a much different way that didn't used to be there before. This is impact of building a feature, right? And then the third question, which we discussed previously, which was responsibility. As a creator, designer, or engineer, you bear the responsibility for every feature you're building. Think about the ADAS system in cars, like um these driverless cars, which are running around in San Francisco. They did a lot of testing, and there were those moral questions. If you're going in a car and there's a roadblock ahead of you, but on the right side of the lane, there's a woman with a dog going and a child there, the car will swerve. So the question is, what would you do? Would you just go hit the roadblock and save the woman and the dog and the child, or you would swerve, save the passengers, and hit the pedestrians? So MIT Labs designed a small interface to test these ethical questions, that trolley problem sort of questions, like what would you do? And they created multiple scenarios of like you're going in a car and there's a thief trying to run. What would you do? If there's a dog, if there are animals, if there are old people, if there are young people, they've created multiple variations. Basically, think about it, what that programmer would feed into the algorithm and how it has to behave. That programmer's thought process is actually going out in the real world and making decisions. The AI is making decisions basis that programmer's inputs. Think of the facial recognition bias that exists, right? The way the facial recognition algorithm was taught, it had bias towards dark-skinned people, right? These are the questions that will come up, and so therefore you think about the responsibility that comes at this stage when you're designing something, when you're building something, the responsibility that you hold for what you're designing based on the scale at which your product or feature will interact and the impact that it will create. And there's a Canadian philosopher, Marshall McLuhan, and I really like this quote that we shape our tools, we create tools, and those tools therefore start shaping us on how we behave and use with them. I'll take a pause. Said a lot. Are there any questions at this point? All right. Then I did a great job explaining. Please, by the way, again, I'll keep repeating. Please feel free to ask questions. Going ahead. So how can you think about second order thinking? So I've tried to break it down into these 5 points. If you can come up with a 6th point, if you can make it better, feel free to do that. But this is a framework I've come up with to help think through every time you're working on something, at least not everything, but the important problems that you may be solving, new feature that you're working on. The first way to look at when you're designing a feature, the first way to think about it is how will people use it and optimize their life or optimize their way of working for the better. Like think about chat GPT now. People use it as a replacement for Google search, right? For conversations, for communications, for writing code. You just go chat GPT, create content, and just something that you would have used your head to do that. And now it saves that time, it saves you that effort, and helps you become faster in your chores that you're doing. Think of the forwarded message, forwarded many times tag that comes on the WhatsApp messages. What it does is it allows you to know that, oh, this post has been spreading a lot. This has been forwarded a lot of times. So at least now you'll anticipate viral spreading information, information that's spreading virally, sorry. Rather than some post coming to your channel or chat, and you think, oh, somebody just shared it with you, but now oh, this has been shared a lot of times, so it is a viral spreading information, and you'll look at it with a different lens. So this is incentives. Exploitation, again, is What, in my previous company, I used to tell everybody 80% of the times I was just thinking about how might bad actors try to mess with this capability that I'm building, this feature that I'm building, and how to make sure they can't. So this is what 80% of the times I was working on in my previous company, the problems that I was solving. Exploitation is you build something and people trying to misuse it, right? Think of the, so by the way, retweet is one example of how somebody may misuse it. Think of the I recently, multiple taxi drivers told me about a scam that people are now doing, where they book a cab, saying that, oh, I have to get this cake delivered to some place. Please come and collect it from here. Then they'll go, they'll waste time and all, and then they'll say, oh, I actually pay. I have to pay for this cake at the hotel. Can you pay at this number? Pay at this number and collect the cake and deliver it. Basically, trying to scam the taxi drivers. And I heard multiple taxi drivers mention that this is just bad actors misusing a ride sharing service. Think of it, right? And there are many other examples a lot of you may have come across. So that's exploitation. And that's a second order thinking of like thinking, how could people misuse it, and how could I then try and avoid that? Think of cultural changes, how meaning evolves over time, right? Uh, when Facebook came up, it was a social media platform, and then so many other platforms came up on the same concept of like micro segments, focusing at micro segments. I remember there was one application which was like a Facebook for parents, where they could add all information, they can view all information, store and this and that. That's exactly how the founder defined the platform. And there were many other platforms like Facebook for so and so group, Facebook for parents, Facebook for veterans, and whatnot. So a product became a cultural symbol, right? Think of the 24-hour stories that I think Snapchat came at it first, and quickly WhatsApp and Instagram, and everybody had 24-hour stories. Because you don't want to lose on something that caught up so quickly, became so culturally popular, and now everybody has it, right? 24-hour stories. Think of the filters that you have on while you're talking on conversations or calls. You can add filters all over the filters to your calls and stuff, right? And pictures. Think of how we've moved from emojis to stickers, make your own stickers, a library of stickers. My God, like it's endless. These are cultural evolutions of features of ways how we wanted to communicate. This is how cultural evolution has happened. And then we talk about system effects, like what you have done will impact with other systems. And so think of Swiggy, for example. The riders deliver food wherever you order from, and from a restaurant to wherever you are. But that has evolved the behaviors for how apartments and societies deal with riders coming to those societies, right? Special entrances, special checks, or whatever. That if you're a rider, you have to go through this. There are separate lanes built for delivery folks, and office spaces. How these office spaces allow entry and facilitate these people going up, or you have to come down, collect your order. Those sort of behaviors emerged as a food delivery service interacted with these different systems. Residential apartments, cloud kitchens coming up as a concept, restaurants having separate windows. I saw this recently at the McDonald's where I went. There's a separate window for delivery guys who come and pick up their parcels from there. So they're not crowding that common space where customers will come and order something. These are all evolutions of a particular service impacting the entire ecosystem, which is where the second point I said, right? What you design doesn't remain in isolation. It happens in the real world, and the real world operates in unity. That forest example that I said, forest operates in unity. You could be studying it from a physical perspective, chemistry, biology, botany, zoology, whatever. But forest exists in unity, right? You are choosing to study it from one perspective. And so, yeah, the aspect of system effects. Think of Airbnb, of what it started with, a bread and breakfast space where it's a very homely or a very casual interaction, to now experience driven hosting service, right? Where hosts are expected to provide a good experience, to be rated super host or whatnot, and to get better options to price their properties. That's evolution of behavioral shift, behaviors being behaviors evolving as a consequence. There's a very interesting example of a building, an architecture in London. It's called 20 Fenchurch Street. The building was a particular structure up until, I think, 1960s or something. Then they started building on top of it, and it's called a walkie-talkie building, by the way. The second order consequence that the architect did not think about was that the shape of the building was slightly concave. And so at like a couple of hours during the day, when the sun is exactly in front of pointing at the building, the concave effect of the building would create a very focused sun ray beam on the ground. And there are examples where there's a story where a guy parked his Jaguar in front of the Fenchurch building, and the rear view mirror, the side view mirror, the casing of it, and parts of the body, they melted because the heat focusing on the ground from the sun, it was acting like a lens to focus a sun ray beam on the ground. And that was something, that was a consequence of an architect not thinking about how this building would evolve, work with the system or the environment around it. That is second order consequence that you learn with. Sometimes you may not be able to envision that, but you learn and you work on improving and make it. You work on improving it and making it better. But the bigger the project you have, or the bigger the impact you have, like I said, the consequences would be much larger. And so it is important that you think before when the consequences or the impact is much larger. You have to think before it, because when the challenges will come, you wouldn't be able to solve for those larger audiences or for those larger consequences. And so yeah, consider the magnitude of impact for the future you're building. Again, I'll take a pause. Do we have questions at this point? I spoke a lot. Please feel free to ask questions. Yes, Pooja.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Hello.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Your voice was a bit muffled, but I'll try to make sense of it. Go ahead.
Okay. So can you share another example for exploitation?
Sorry, can I share another example for what?
Exploitation. I was not able to understand what exploitation is.
Okay, you know what? Let me do one thing. The next slide that I have is actually actually not the next slide. In a couple of slides, I'll come to a case study at my previous company where I exactly worked on solving for exploitation of a particular feature, and I'll talk about it. So
Okay,
I'll
sure.
have it in the next 5-10 minutes. Yeah.
Okay. And another thing. So incentives. I thought of this example and I wanted to ask if it is correlated to incentives. So, say you are registering for a webinar or something, but then they say that you have to be accepted and you'll be sent an invite. So, is that an example of incentives?
So right now, this is a statement which can have multiple contexts. Like, what's the context of the event that we're talking about? What is the scale of the event, right? Is it an exclusive event? Is it like a available for all kind of event? Therefore, that will define whether it's good or bad. Uh, and what was the objective of the event? What were you trying? Like, if it's a, for example, what was the event that recently happened for Figma?
Conflict?
Config, right? So again, for the organizer, they know that this is a very popular, this is going to be a very popular event, but we can only, I have a budget, for example. I have $100,000 in which I have to set up the entire event. So you will break down the cost and you will say, I can optimize for 1,000 people being present here, for example. Now, you cannot, therefore, you cannot share more than 1,000 pass invites, right? Or 1,000 seats for that space. You extend that to virtual event, and again, you're trying to monitor, you're trying to make sure you're filtering out uh, people who try to spam people. You have to think of the bad actors. Again, this is where the bad actor concept comes in, exploitation. Like, how would somebody misuse an open invite for such a large event, right? And
Okay, even if it's free, if it's not paid, you just attend it.
So if it's paid or not paid, again, and therefore, like, paid or not paid concept kind of attaches to the organizer or the presenter putting a value, saying like, look, if you want to learn something from me or whatever, you got to pay this much to therefore, like, get that access. Because think about it, whoever is presenting also is putting some time, effort to build that content or organizing the event. So a free event is not a cost to the viewer, but there's a cost to the presenter or organizer, right, for it creating that event. It's a choice whether I can, who's going to bear the cost. There'll always be a cost to doing something, right? Even designing a small icon will have a cost, because the time you spent on building that icon, let's say 2 hours, equates to how much salary you're getting paid, and what does that compute to 2 hours worth of your time, and that is the cost for building that icon, right? So everything has a cost, and therefore people at the top are just assessing how much can I spend versus how much I'm going to make money out of it, right? That's how the economy will work. It essentially comes down to that, but we always build more ethical layers and more conceptual abstraction on top of the economy that runs underneath.
Okay, okay, makes sense. Thank you so much.
All right. So, having given this framework, I would like to share a few ways of thinking, or like trying to come up with or trying to assess or build second order thinking, second order thinking to second nature. Scenario planning. So this is something I use very often, which is if I'm given a challenge or like a problem to solve or manage, I'm thinking, okay, what's the best thing? What's the most ideal thing that I want to happen? What is the worst thing that can happen, right? Uh, Worst thing would probably be I did not get the required equipment and therefore I cannot proceed ahead and therefore I'm blocked or whatever, right? You're thinking of the worst thing. The best thing is tomorrow I get all the equipment and I can start working on this feature, and in 5 days I will get it done, which is way ahead of the timeline. But there'll be the moderate scenario, which is usually it takes so much time for delivery and therefore I should consider this much time for delivery, and this is the time I need for, you're optimizing your work basis on the best and worst and likely scenario. Should always plan for likely, but you should be aware of the best and the worst case scenarios. Like, what if this happens? So, nothing hits you in the face when it happens. If even if the worst is to happen, it won't surprise you because you already thought about it, if not prepared for it already, right? So that is scenario planning, very useful. Consider that and try and use it the next time you're working on something. And then red teaming. This is the part that I did a lot in my previous job, where you be the devil's advocate, you be that bad actor and try and think, how can I break this system? How many ways are there where I can break the system and it will not work? How can I poke a hole into it? It actually allowed me to be a good QA as well in my previous company, because I had a QA and I would ask her questions like, okay, what about this? Did you test for this situation, and did you test for that situation? Because having exposure to how the system or the architecture was built, I can look at it like, what are the different stress points, right? Think about it in like a real building. You do that stress point analysis, right? What are the different weak points of the structure? Where can somebody break in from? How can the structure collapse? Similarly, you're doing the same for your design, your feature. How can I make it break? What can I do that it will just cause it to crash? And so you plan for everything. And then interdisciplinary input is something the best companies would do this. The top companies would do this, where you have people from multiple disciplines working together, and it just is very powerful in the sense it gives you so many perspectives that you had not planned for. By the way, in my previous company, it happened a lot that I was given a task. Okay, Pranay, design the UX for a particular feature, and I would work on it. I would create a presentation of the concept, like why are we doing it, what is it, where will it be present, how will it work, and so on. I'd create those slides, and then I'd present it to my engineering team, because I wanted to make sure whatever I have designed is not so outlandish that they would say, like, boss, this is not happening in a week. This needs 6 months to be built, right? So to avoid those conversations, I would present it to them. And it happened multiple times that they would say, why don't you consider doing it like this? Or why don't you use this component instead of that? And that actually was a better suggestion, which I hadn't thought of. I work from my own perspective, right? So, and when you work with more people, it just expands the perspective of how you're looking at the problem, right? And therefore, there are more ways somebody can point out a stress point rather than you looking at a side of a problem. Right? So again, a very helpful activity. If you don't do it already, try initiating it in your organization. Like, set up a meeting, do a presentation of the feature that you're doing. Like, the 4 questions that I would answer were like, what is this feature, right? Why am I building this feature? What purpose would it serve? Who are the stakeholders who would interact with it? So it could be your direct user, it could be an indirect user, whoever is interacting with it. And where will, in this ecosystem of the product that is already there, where will it be, added or present, and where will it get added, basically? And I would do that presentation. So it really helps. Try building a presentation, present it to your team, engineering team or marketing or sales or whoever. Get feedback from them, customer success, because they're talking to customers. They know the kind of problems that people come up with, and they'll tell you, yeah, customer success will say, hey, is there a way I can analyze this information that customers are giving me? A lot of it is being collected. Is there a way I can get access to it in a very insightful way? That's the feedback you may get from them. And so you could think about that. Again, I'll take a pause before I go to the case study from my previous company. Do we have any questions to this point? All good for Shane? All right. So if there are no questions, going ahead. So now I want to talk about a case study from my previous company. Access control is the feature that we built. And to give you context, in my previous company, we built safety systems for industrial fork trucks. So in forklifts, this is an image of a forklift. This is what forklifts look like. So we're building safety systems for that. And one of the products that we built was a digitized inspection checklist. So let me actually show you. So every industrial equipment, think of a plane or a crane or a ship or a forklift, every time you do have to perform an inspection. Usually it used to be a paper checklist, and you have to perform that inspection before you use that equipment. So these are usually yes, no answers, pass, fail questions. Is the fork, are there any dents on the vehicle? Is there any fluid leak? Stuff like that. Do the tires have right pressure and whatnot? So these are the kind of questions you would have. And the operator would go to the coordination manager, pick a paper checklist, come to the fork truck, do the inspection, yes, no, pass, fail, whatever, and submit it back and come back to the fork truck to then start working. What we did was we provided an interface which sits on the fork truck. It knows it is synced to the fork truck. And therefore, you start an inspection, you answer those questions. The question, like the response is now stored in cloud. It's there for the manager to view it. and the guy starts using the fork truck. So no going back and forth, submitting the paper and all that. So this is what we did, digitizing the inspection. Now, one of the capabilities that the managers wanted were, one of the capabilities that the managers wanted was the ability to lock somebody who is unauthorized. What does unauthorized mean? Like, you've not performed an inspection, so therefore you should not be able to use the vehicle. Only once you've completed the inspection is when you should be able to use the truck. So this is how the first iteration of the system came in. So the way we implemented access control was there was small hardware that we install at the point of ignition. We connect it to the ignition of the fork truck, and basically we have Bluetooth. It's connected to the tablet. So if you log in, the tablet sends a command. And the hardware module allows you to turn on the ignition of the truck. That's how it was working. So in the first iteration, the vehicle is off. The operator logs in, and now the vehicle can be turned on, and once they log out, the vehicle turns off. Simple, makes sense. Like that is how you can. I'll make sure that unauthorized people cannot use the system. But what we saw, and by the way, sorry, I did not give context about the operators, the drivers who were driving this vehicle. Think of them as like really people who don't give a f about any new system or safety or whatever. All they care about is I have this job, I need to go work, do my 8 hours or whatever, done. They're like 10th fail kind of, people. Haven't studied much, not great education. I just want to do my work, go back, grab a beer, spend time with my family, and that's it. This is the persona for the people who are driving these trucks. So they did not care at all about any safety or whatnot. So here I am, as Sierra introducing a new system saying, oh, you got to do the checklist, and then I will allow you to run the truck and continue using for whatever work you have. So what we saw was they started just logging into the system, and before starting a checklist, because now the truck can turn on, they would just turn it on and start driving. They would not perform the inspections. And so we will get feedback from managers, hey, people are just driving the truck without doing an inspection. We're like, okay, that's a good problem. That's an outcome we hadn't planned for. So therefore, what we did was, you have to log in, you have to complete an inspection, and only then you can use the vehicle. But while I was making this feature, it just occurred to me that remember this checklist? It has two kinds of questions. One where you can just visually inspect the truck and check pass or fail the question. But then there are a second set of questions which require the truck to be turned on, like check the parking lights, check the brakes if they're working or not. You can't do that without turning on the truck. So how can somebody complete an inspection if they cannot turn on the truck? Right? So again, going back to the drawing board, so I had to make it more granular, that in the checklist, so the checklist could be digitized right on the dashboard. I can recreate this checklist on the dashboard. And for every section that is defined, I added a small button which says engine on or engine off. Do you want to allow the operators to be able to turn on the ignition at this point or not? So we designed it for each section. That for section 1, you don't need the engine, so the vehicle will not turn on. For the second section, you do need engine on, so at that point, you can turn on the ignition. But now, second order thinking again, how could somebody misuse it? It occurred to us that you could come to a question and just stay there and start the vehicle and keep using it. You don't give a flying F, about performing the inspection, which meant I had to introduce a feature for response time. Like, you have 60 seconds, or like the manager could define that to answer this question, it would take 30 seconds, 60, 120, whatever. They could define the time. And after that, if you do not answer that question within that time, you would get logged out, and now you have to log in again and do the inspection again. You would get timed out. All of this was part of that exploitative thinking. How will somebody misuse the system to just avoid using the system? And this activity actually resulted in making this whole system very robust. It is being used at multiple client places, and we since then, since we did this granular approach on how when it could be turned on and turned off, and with the time limitation, uh, we haven't heard any uh, client telling us that people are misusing or like unauthorized usage on the system where they're not doing inspections and they're just using the vehicle. Just not possible anymore. There is still a way. You could physically, remove the wire connection between the hardware and the truck. That is still, what do you say, a weak spot for the entire system, but that's just like blatant, disregard and bad actor usage. So there's a limit to which you can optimize, right? The software is optimized perfectly, but the hardware, that's a hardware problem, right? And again leads to a behavioral problem. So I'll take a pause. Are there any questions on like what we did, why we did, and what could have been done better? Are there any questions to whatever I've spoken so far? All right, I guess not. Cool. So now, with the context that I gave you all, let's do some exercises, example exercises. Um, so thinking about that interface that I told you about, that you have a device which can allow access, you can turn on or off the truck, or at least you can choose when to allow the truck to turn on or not, right? So now I want you all to think about this and let's have a discussion. One of the features we wanted to design was that one of the behaviors we saw was that, let's say Shayant logs in with his credentials, and just before logging out, he did not log out, and Mariam comes in and she uses Shayant's ID to continue driving the fork truck. So she is not doing an inspection. She continues using that truck. One of the ways we thought we could do this is like, what is the maximum time frame when you like in a day you could not be working 24 hours a day, right? So usually on average 12-hour shift is the maximum one could do, and therefore we set a time that if an ID is being logged for more than 12 hours, we would log out that user because definitely somebody else is using it. But there are second order consequences to that. So I'll take a pause there. This is the feature that we were trying to work on, that auto log out. The system will auto log out somebody, an ID, a user that's been logged for more than 12 hours. What do you think the second order consequences would be here?
It would stop mid work.
It would
Right?
stop mid work, correct? That is correct.
Yeah.
But I want them to log in again correctly.
Yeah.
Okay, so it'll stop mid work. Could you expand on like what would that mean, stopping mid work?
It will be safety concern, right?
Yeah,
For
that's
if
what
it
I
is
was
a
thinking.
forklift or something, if they are lifting in between and
Mhm.
this thing shut down, and it will be a safety concern at the same time, right?
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say.
So how could you overcome that? What would you do to evade this problem? You rightly said it would become a safety concern. How would you solve for it?
I'm thinking.
Yeah.
So to give you context, so when the driver is driving, the tablet is in front of the cage, like the cage of the forklift. It's there in front of their face. It's pointing at them. So that's the interface with which they interact, but it's also there looking at them.
A pop-up or something asking them whether to log out or not, but something that grabs attention immediately.
Okay, correct. Yes, we did try that. We made like a flashing sign saying, and we gave time. Hey, the forklift is going to shut down in 60 seconds or whatever, and so please park the vehicle before that or stop the vehicle, whatever work you're doing. But still, there was an issue. Uh, any more ideas on what that issue could be and what we could have solved for?
If it can stop their controls from functioning, and then I'm not sure if it's possible, but
Good. Could you repeat, Pooja? What did you say?
if it can stop them from using the controls, if the controls are not no more functional, but that's more of hardware, I guess.
Right. It would stop the vehicle. You can not turn on the vehicle thereafter. So
But not log out.
it will log them out, but at the same time, it would disallow the ignition to be turned on. Like you can keep moving the key, but the ignition will not come up. You cannot start the vehicle. That's what will happen.
Okay, okay.
So okay, let me. Are there any more ideas? Otherwise, like I'll jump in.
So there is one in the comment where saying giving a timer if the usage time left, like a timer or something.
We discussed like we did that. So you're right.
Oh.
Giving a timer before locking it out, giving the proper time and signal to say that you're getting locked out because. And by the way, the statement I designed was very like, hey, it's been too long. You need to take a break. So it's not like scolding the person for misbehaving, but it's like, hey, it seems like you're working too hard. Time to take a rest. So that was a messing, but the main problem it was a fraction of a scenario where it would happen, but it was very important. Some instances we observed that people did not install the system that we were talking about in front of them on the cage. They just kept it somewhere behind or some place else. And just for that small fraction of usage, we did not make this feature because it was it could have been a very major safety or hazard that, you're driving the truck, even with the 60 seconds or whatever, you did not see the message and the truck suddenly stopped. And these folk trucks are carrying hundreds of kgs of, weight at a time. At times quintals and tons of weight, not tons, but like hundreds of kgs of weight at time. And all of that could come crashing down if the truck suddenly stopped. And that's just too big a risk to design this feature. It would have stopped that bad actor scenario, but the risk that it posed, even for the tiny fraction of users who did not keep the system in front of them, we did not design this feature. We cut it out. Was very much wanted, but did not do it. Siren, yes, siren or haptic, but these industrial places are very loud, often very noisy. What if you miss the siren? We were using the tablet's speaker to create a noise as well, but we observed that the speaker of the tablet wasn't loud enough. And we did not have a system where a louder speaker was connected to the system. That wasn't there in place. So perhaps that could be a solution, but it would require hardware team to come in and integrate it with the tablet and whatnot, which was not available. So good solution, but was limited by integration capabilities for the product team. But this is an example of what we did, what happened. Any thoughts, any points, any questions on this? I'm not looking at the screen. So shall we go ahead? All right. There's another exemplar size. This is a business design project that I did during my master's. We created a service where the objective was to help. We've targeted women as a customer segment, but it could be, think about a tourist in a new city or something, where the objective was to help the users get quick emergency response when they need it. That was the purpose of that app. And the feature we built was that, think about it, if I've built this app and Milby and Pooja and Shayant and Pranay, everybody's on this app. And let's say Nagashri is having a moment of distress and she requests for help. So anybody who's a user of this app will get notified that, oh, somebody close to me, like, you know, how people, you would have a network of app users and it would tell you somebody close to you is in need. And this was a feature we thought of building. Again, I'll take a pause. What do you think the second order consequences of defining such a feature would be? If you haven't understood the feature, if you like want context or clarity, please ask questions, but think about this.
But I mean, what if it's a tourist and they're in a different place? Wouldn't like the people they know would be far too? Like they wouldn't have in that country
So
a place, right?
let me add
Yeah. Uh-huh.
any app user. So for example, Yana
Okay.
of the app.
Oh,
Any,
any app user. I thought only the contacts. Okay, okay.
so
Okay, got it.
you go to Greece, and anybody who's a Yana user in Greece, and you could
Okay,
request for help from them. So think about it. Your ability to get help is
Mm-hmm.
now expanded multifolds. You know, you're not just relying on the police or your friends or contact who may or may not be there in that city, but
Okay.
it just increases the ability, the net of people who could help you. That's the idea with which we are designed. Yes, Pooja.
So in that case, that could just backfire.
That could risk what?
That could just backfire. It could also make you more vulnerable, and you could also it
How's that?
threats.
How's that? How would it make it more vulnerable? And make
You're not sure that every user would come who's on the app would actually help you.
correct? You just need one person to help you.
Yeah, no, in that case, they might also take it as an advantage.
Mhm. How would they take advantage?
She is suggesting is like, for example, any person in that location who is using this app will alert, right? So
Mhm.
if this alerted person are a person who is not a person who is helping, he use this app as another reason to uh, find people in this situation or like take advantage of it. That is what I think Pooja is
Good.
referring to. Yes.
Good. That's a good point. Yes, that is one second order consequence of how the app or feature would evolve.
Mm.
What more?
So basically, I use a tool. The Google actually have Google Emergency, right? In that, you can add one contact that is your point of contact or emergency. It is not an emergency contact that you connect with anyone. This is just a contact that inform that this person is in danger, they need help. And the
Yeah.
second contact will be any official, the police. Instead of you, for example, I think that with the AI tool now, instead of you talking, the AI will talk your situation to the police, telling the location you are in, the emergency situation you are in using. So basically, if I am, for example, if I am traveling in Delhi, they will connect the typical police number instead of me contacting, because I am not in a stage of contacting if it is an accident, if it is some people are trying to attack me. Instead of me talking, the AI itself do the talking with them, sharing all the information like my details, my emergency details, where I am locating, because the mobile application already know which location I am. It automatically activate the location. It
Right.
send the pinpoint like the parts of location sharing. It share all the details, vehicle number, everything that is. Now I think it's doing most of these things are done in Google. In some cities, not in India. India, it directly call the police and it also message your emergency people. If they are near, they can help. Otherwise, this will direct help from the police or emergency
Right.
ambulance or anything at the place.
Right. And actually, in Apple, you have this feature of alerting emergency contacts. So, true, which is again a base level of security that is, I mean, the most conventional idea that you would have, that you should be able to contact people that you know, the police, and to be able to help you. But what we were trying to maximize here was the ability and reducing the time in which you will get the help, right? So by expanding the net to all Yana users, it could be anywhere. As the number of users on the app increases, the possibility of being held in any place would also significantly increase, right? That was the idea. So Sharon, your point, yes, those features are already there in a lot of services. And by the way, I'll share my project here. This is where we did it'll show you the capabilities that we built. It is one of the things, and there was one more capability we built, trusted circle, and I'll talk about it later. Don't want to spend too much time here. But coming back to this point, getting help from any Yana user, uh, there's one more challenge that we came up with, but I want to hear if somebody else comes up with more challenges, second order consequences of this feature, that you could get help from anybody who's a Yana user. So the moment somebody says, I'm coming to help, everybody gets a ring on their phone that I need help, or like somebody needs help, and you respond that I am going to help, I'm coming. What could be a second order consequence?
People will come and help if possible.
Yeah, that's what we thought. Yes, true. All right.
But I think most people didn't come, I guess.
Which is not a problem. If somebody chooses not to, that's the choice. It's not everybody has to be Superman, right?
Yeah.
So we understood that. But any other thoughts, ideas? Else, I'll just go into what we came up with.
Maybe
No.
priority, like what is their priority? Like say that you are also saying I'm helping and somebody is also saying I'm helping. Like how do the system like
Which is fine.
takes
Think about it now. If you are in need of help and two people say, I'm coming to help, you wouldn't say that, okay, no, you stay back, let him come. Or let him.
How do you know who's the closest one?
So the position of the person who's requesting the emergency response, you would the app would check for people closest to that person's location. So you're pinging your location that this is where I am. Yeah, requesting emergency, and so the system will check for who's the closest to this person, and there'll be a list of like there'll be a map of people around you, and they'll get all the pings. Let's say within a circle, a radius of 2 kilometers, everybody who's there will get a notification that somebody closed. This is how far they are from you, and they're requesting for help. That could be configurable, like how much radius you want, but that's how. I see Aditi has mentioned badge system to validate the authenticity of the users, who would help or not. But again, Aditi, that's something I could.
Okay, I found this on the web for a badge system. Check it out.
Oh God, sorry. So Aditi, somebody could falsify information, right? That's always possible. So I can rely on that a badge system will for sure be a good solution. But that is a good idea, yes. Validating your users, right? That blue tick that Twitter used to do before is kind of saying you're genuine, right? Pooja mentioned a very good point, which is what I was going to come to. Privacy invasion of all users in the app. Think about the person requesting the emergency being a bad actor, and people getting the notification and somebody says, I'm coming to help, and now it's showing where they are. And so why would I want to share my location and my information of where am I, what am I doing, or like, yeah, just where am I? Why do I want to share that? That's a major privacy invasion. It could be used to surveil people. It could be used to map who's doing what, where they are, and so on. And a lot of bad actors may use it, right, for whatever nefarious purposes they will have. That is a very important point. Yeah, Pooja.
Yeah, but unless I disclose my identity.
So correct. Again, don't think of it as a one-time thing. Think of it happening across time. How will it be used, right? A lot of people. So you can say I'm coming to help, but not showing your identity. But eventually you do come, right? And now imagine I try it again. I create a situation where I keep doing it to map who's where, and like who comes from where and so on. So it could be used as a surveillance tool when you have and the way we had designed the feature was to show the person who's requesting help that, oh, you're getting help in 5 minutes from somebody who's coming from here or there, wherever, right? That's how we had thought. But apparently, that would be a bad way, that would have a bad consequence of it becoming a surveillance tool. And so we did not make this feature.
Okay, once again, so in this application where everyone are anonymous or the identities are not disclosed, then how would it become a surveillance tool?
So if you're requesting help and somebody says, I'm coming to help, you could still keep the identity anonymous. But that also gives rise to what Shayan said, a bad actor looking for somebody requesting help and then trying to make it even worse, right? So it could go either ways. It could be a bad person requesting help and trying to inflict, damage to a good person. It could be a good person getting damaged because of a bad person responding. Because I'm spreading the net, the impact, the scale of this feature to such a large extent to any possible user, right? It creates the possibility of creating negative second order consequences also increases. And therefore, I must evaluate what is the cost of designing this feature. Yes, it helps reduce the time to be helped significantly, but that's when the situation is happy, when that's a happy scenario. That yeah, this is how it has to happen. This is what will happen. This is a happy path. But what if it's a negative scenario, corner cases, right? You have to think for them. And if even the cost of that one corner case is huge, that has to be evaluated, and that may result in you not taking that feature through. Which is what these two examples were in my case, in these exercises that we did. Does it answer your question, or like you thought, Pooja?
Yeah, makes sense. It
Any other
reminds me of this app called Be My Eyes. I'm not sure if you've tried it.
demise?
BE My. Yeah.
Ah, all right. I think I know where it's going, but what did it do, this app?
So basically, probably blind people, they can seek help from this app, and so wherever they are from, they just give you a call and it notifies all users. You take the call and can you help them through video call, I guess. I got a couple of calls, but I've never really attended them so far.
What do you think could be a second order consequence of this?
I don't know, it's mostly just video call, so I don't think if it has any negative consequences.
What app is this?
I'm sorry?
What is the app?
Be My Eyes.
Okay.
Interesting. Right. So shall we go ahead, or are there any other thoughts, questions you would like to ask? All right. Going ahead. So now I want to talk about so we're reaching the end. We have actually reached the end. This is something that you can part with. This is another concept that I'd like you to part with from today's session. It's called the Collingridge dilemma. Basically, when a new technology is introduced, at the early stage, there's less knowledge about how people are using. So you've designed for first order consequences, your app, you've built it for the first order consequences. You have less knowledge of how people will interact, how behaviors will evolve. But you have high degree of design freedom on how you want to build a particular tool or app. Think about Uber or Facebook when they started with, right? What was the concept with which they started? And as time evolves, as you see the user behaviors and how they're using your particular app or service or feature, there is less and less ability to make those design changes at a late stage. And therefore, at the late stage, you will have a high degree of knowledge of how people use it. But because the scale is so large and the degree to which people use it, you will not be able to solve for everything, right? You will not be able to solve for every use case of how people use your particular app or service. And so your design freedom is rather limited. So the dilemma is like, what is the right point for intervention? Is it that you design something and you wait for certain consequences to emerge and then you design for them, or or could it be like anticipate those second order consequences right when you're working, right when you're starting? Like, what do you think this could evolve into? What will it become? It just changes the way you're designing something. It's not just for the sake of completing a task given to you by your manager or whatever. You're thinking of what is the final objective that it's adding to, right? How is it fulfilling that? What is it going to result into, right? And that is the thought process you need to have. And which is where, this is a very literal example. Design for the ripples, not just the splash. Right? What would those ripples result into? What would they cause? What would they create? So have a systems mindset. And I talked about this in my previous session as well. Um, you could be a UI designer, right? But you have the awareness of the entire field in which you're playing, right? In which you're working. And you know the whole context in which you're performing, doing your job. Knowing that will allow you to better design, and like what should be done, what should you work towards. So adopt the systems mindset, design for the ripples, not just the splash. And with that, I'll take a pause, the final pause, and I'd like open it for questions and answers and any other discussions you guys would like to have. Thank you so much for patiently listening. I really appreciate this. All right. Let's have any discussion, even if not particularly to second order thinking, but like anything you have in your mind that you'd like to discuss, if it relates or does not relate to what we discussed today.
I think like there is one more series, not series, documentary that I can refer is like the social dilemma in Netflix actually, which talk about the first set of thing that you talked about, like how likes, how even if everyone working in the tech field, who is working in product like Instagram, any social media platform or any other product, no, we are a people who tell that we are building for users, but we always also need to think about the business aspect. That is what Septo did, right? Septo is something that they build for the users, but Septo did a lot of their dark pattern thing because they need to have that revenue to push them in the market, competitive market, and that is a intentionally decided what to dark pattern they done. And I feel like in the second order, a lot of people know that reshare will end up in somewhere they intentionally know, but I feel like they are doing it for their revenue, their growth, and it is something in a tech field. If you're working in tech, some point of time you need to agree on. And but as a designer or the experience, the person who is building the experience, our thing is like we should not end up in a situation where it will backfire a society in a very bad way. That is what we need to keep in mind.
Correct.
This is something that we kind of handle in a everyday basis. We need to manage the profit of the company, and we need to talk for the people also. But yeah. So that's why I told like the social dilemma documentary talk about this.
And I actually became paranoid after
Yeah.
that. So I get what you're saying. By the way, I want to mention like on this discussion of how the second order thinking. I think it was Melby who had written an article on LinkedIn about. Correct me if I'm wrong. If it was Nagashri or Melby who wrote about the article about cybersecurity and designing with cybersecurity in mind.
That was me.
That was Melby, right? So that was again a very important point. Just working with a cybersecurity engineer or an engineer working on security, defining the security for the product, you'll get to understand like how should you design how should you create that interface which does not risk the security, which does not share information for the hacker, the bad actor trying to sabotage the system, and just changes a lot of several times. It changes a lot of the design that you made, and you'd have to just cut down on it or change it to adapt to the cybersecurity protocols. But yeah, that was an interesting point as well. And let me share one more thought. Think about it. So a lot of these hardwares today, every product says, AI powered, AI so and so product. And the way they do it is you have all of these sensors, information that's being collected by these hardwares, and to compute that and to find trends and patterns, and that's how you generate insights. Either the AI is generating insights and saying this could happen, or the AI is taking actions basis the information or patterns or trends it has identified. But essentially, there are sensors, a lot of sensors being put on all of these machines that are now all around you, from your television screens to Wi-Fi's to the robo vacuums and whatnot. What do you think will be the consequence of having so many machines with all of these sensors all around you all the time?
It is already evident, right? People can track anything nowadays with anything. Even the vacuum machine that you are using, they can track you. What are you doing? What is your cleaning pattern? What is the time when you are not home? That is where the vacuum machine is operating. So recently someone did this actually, because the vacuum machine operate when there are no one in the home. So this automatically works. So if they hack into that system, they know, okay, this person will not be home in this particular time. So if you want to get into this person's house, this you need to hack in the vacuum machine.
Correct.
CCTV cameras are very hackable nowadays because everything is connected through wire. So yeah, nowadays it's like you're living in a world you need to understand. You're already watched every second, even the phone, the camera that we are using.
Yeah, but it's not only, I think, not only about being watched. It is like the amount of data people are putting up on net. Like, let it be their photos, pics, their personal things, like whatever it is there, they are putting it in ChatGPT or OpenAI, wherever, whichever source they can find to be in that trend.
Like we can find anyone just with the image, and but there is in the Google, you could just put the image. You can see every image is similar to that, and find out their social media, their website, everything there. It is very easy to do all this thing now.
Right. And I recently watched a video where it showed like your Wi-Fi router. He has a sensor, and if somebody comes close, the signal or the patterns change. So if you observe the patterns for a long amount of time, basis who was where and so on, you could map basically that this pattern means somebody standing here, there, or whatever, even sitting in a bathroom.
Yeah.
So you have information about who's doing what. I mean, that is a level, that is a degree to which an information can be, collected about you just by sensors all around. So the second order consequences, there will be no more privacy. Like somebody may choose not to take an action basis the information they're collecting, but there is no privacy. That's the consequence. What will that mean? It could mean then services coming up, or products being built around providing that privacy. Those vacuum bubbles where nothing is tracking you, services like that could come up as a consequence, right? Because there are people who want privacy, they don't have it, and they want that kind of space. Who knows?
There are apps right now which help you to delete your information from the internet, where like you have your details shared. There are services like that nowadays, I guess.
Yeah. So,
privacy is something that we don't have nowadays, I guess.
And it will reduce even further, right? To a point in future, nothing is private. When you think about government policies, for example, they're working on orders of third, fourth, fifth order consequences, right? If I do this, this will happen. But what happens when they choose to act on one of the ways, right? Think about engaging in war with a particular country. What would it will have third, fourth, fifth orders of consequences calculated, because you have to think, if I do this, then they will do this, and then how will I respond, and then to that, how will they respond, and so it's like a huge map of activities and consequences that you're thinking and talking about. So the bigger the problem you're working on, the larger the consequences and larger the order of magnitude at which you're thinking about those problems.
So this is something that I do regularly on the product and stuff that I am working. But this is not like we never had a intentionally thought about like what will be the consequence. We are prepared if this thing gonna happen, how will we solve it? But we never thought about the second order consequences of stuff. So this kind of give me an idea of how we should prepare for the product that we are building and the things we are building. So this section is kind of helpful in terms of that. Even though we did it in a very small scale, but I feel like going forward with the tools like that we are having, I feel like we need to put little bit more thoughts on this before going live or after going live. We need to have certain parameters to do all this thing.
Absolutely, and I agree with what you said. Yeah, designers have to become more cognizant about how other systems are working and what their requirements of work may influence, how you're designing. Because as the skill part is being overtaken by AI, or at least being reduced, the effort of the handwork that we used to do or that was required earlier, now AI tools are helping a lot more, right? So it requires you to be more thoughtful, right? That's where you will create your edge as a designer, like the ability at which, the scale at which you can think, and how big of a problem are you solving, right?
Mm.
Right.
That's it. Any other question you guys have? I think that there is no more question. Yeah.
Yeah, no questions. That's
maybe-
it. I think even I'll agree with what Shant is telling, and whatever you have, like a really good session. And like basically whatever we were doing unconsciously, now bringing it to the conscious, like we have a term for it now, like go think in the second order thinking way and like move forward in whatever you're doing. Like not just an unconscious thing that, oh, this may happen, but now consciously make an effort.
That's right. It's actually a mental model on how to solve problems. So now you're just applying it as a design, right? All right. I think if there's nothing more,
No, it was a really nice session. Like even Shayant was like really helpful. Even I didn't think about it. Like now I realize, yeah, like there are consequences. You need to think about it because I just started. So yeah, like usually you think like how can I make it better, but not like what if people mess up. So yeah, that's a good thing to keep in mind.
yeah. I mean, a very small
Yeah.
example. Think if you're going for a trek in like woods or something in a jungle, you're going to think of everything that can happen and prepare for it beforehand, before you go to the woods, because then you will not be able to find, let's say you needed food or water or whatever. You'll prepare for it. You will carry a knife, you will carry a whistle or whatever, compass beforehand, because then you cannot react when that situation.
Yeah.
So you will think of everything that can happen, and that's how you think of your design, your product, the work you're doing.
Mhm. Yeah, that makes more sense. We usually apply it to everything else, so it should apply to design too. I read an article. I mean, I'm not sure if it was an article or not. It was like this person has this robot vacuum cleaner, so it tracks like it just cleans by itself the whole floor, and he realized it's actually transmitting data or something, and he removed the chip or something, and then the robot like it stopped working. He fixed it. Then they told him to return it back to the company itself. It was like a Chinese brand or something. He was like, why do they need the data?
Right.
Pranay, I have a question, like more or like question. It's like if we are thinking about consequences endlessly, like how do you stop yourself from looping around?
I'm so happy you asked that question. I was
Oh
hoping
yeah,
you would
that is.
ask that. That's a very good point. And again, if we, at some point, you have to evaluate. So again, for example, I'll give an example from my previous work. There were times when there's a feature that you want to build for a particular capability, and you need to do A, B, C, D, and there's also E you must do, right? There are 5 things you must do, but you have to then choose between the cost and time and effort that you're putting into building it. So one way would be you could break it into phases. As part of phase 1, you would build A and B, and phase 2 you'll take up C and D, right? And then third phase you'll take up E. That would allow you to build the most basic, the most needed capability first, and then you add layers on top of it. So the development actually breaks down into phases of evolution rather than all of it coming together as one. You are cognizant of what A and B will do. They're providing the most basic capability, and then you're adding layers on top of it. So that is a decision that the team will take as a collective. It will involve decisions on the resources you have, the time you're spending, and the cost it takes to build it. So that is the level where it will break that endless analysis paralysis, as you would say.
Understood. More or like saying most viable product or something, right?
Right. You're thinking of building a Ferrari, but like, what's the minimum that you need?
Yeah, understood.
Because you want to be fast, right? Respond fast. Again, going back to the 24-hour story wala feature, think about it. Snapchat introduced it, and within weeks, everybody else built it. But was it like WhatsApp was waiting with developers and engineers to build that capability? Some new feature will come, and I will put my engineers to work on it. No, they have. They would have their own roadmap on what they were going to build, but they immediately pivoted to the 24-hour story format, building it on their own app. Point being that you're building it in increments, so not everything all has to be done in one go. So you
Yeah,
could break the work into phases.
right. Understood. Thank you, Pranay.
You're welcome, and thank you, Pooja, for your comment. Yes, please join the culture group. It's a very happening, active place. A lot of discussions keep happening, and Shayan and a lot of other people in the group keep adding a lot of useful information. Discussions that happen there. So please do join the group as well. And yes,
Yeah. Also, you can share your LinkedIn if people want to connect you and the questions. I think you can share your LinkedIn if possible. I have shared the group like the LinkedIn Lucknow, IXD Lucknow link also I shared so that they can join there. Or if you want to share your LinkedIn, you can share your address.
I'll share it here, and yes, I'll share it in other channels as well. Again, wrapping up, thank you so much for giving me the time to talk about whatever I had in my head, and like for listening so patiently, and for the questions and discussions that we had. Thank you all. See you all later. Bye bye.
Bye then. Bye guys.
Thank you.